So hey everyone, welcome to this session. I'm really happy to join this meetup today, even though it's remote. I hope next time it will be fully offline or online, whatever. So today we're going to talk about low-code, no-code platforms, and we'll learn why and how you can open your platform or your product that you're working on for external developers. And it has a connection on the with the previous topic, because you will understand later on why. And before we'll start, a few words about me. My name is Vlad Mistetsky. I'm originally from Ukraine and I live in Israel for the past 6 years. I joined Monday.com 2 years ago, and I'm leading here Monday Apps framework team. And my team is responsible for actually building an infrastructure which converts Monday to a low-code platform and allows external developers to build applications on top of it. I love music, photography, and web technologies, and my biggest passion is to build platforms for developers, because I really believe that we as developers are the most interesting and the most demanding audience. So building the product for us, it's always a challenge. A little bit about Monday.com product. If you never heard about us, or maybe you tried and used it, or maybe you're using it day to day, actually we're building a work management system, which is a modular platform which contains a lot of different building blocks. And our users can easily build any workflow they want with these building blocks without any coding skills. But as I already mentioned, also extend and build their own blocks with our low-code framework. Monday.com is a hyper-growth company which went public around 8 months ago. And today we're more than $230 million in annual recurring revenue, ARR, and growing almost twice every year. We have more than 100,000 paying customers from more than 180 countries. And our customers are coming from really different industries and different sizes, from teams of 2 people to teams of thousands of people. And all of them can use the same platform out of the box. And our customers heavily rely on the platform to run their projects, processes, and everyday work. The company is spread all around the world with headquarters in Tel Aviv, and we have big offices also in New York, in London, and Sydney. And we're going to open a new office in Warsaw, which will be our first remote R&D site outside of Tel Aviv. And some numbers from our production system. We are handling more than 500,000 requests per minute on the peak hours, which is usually like 9 a.m. on Monday. We have more than 25 million RPM on the database, more than 8,000 pods on the production Kubernetes cluster, and around 150 developers who are deploying to this monster every day for 10, 20 times each. So about the agenda for the today's topic. In the beginning, I would want to go of what does low-code, no-code platform mean in general. Why is it interesting specifically now? I will share our journey of converting the product into a low-code, no-code platform. And the most importantly, we will go over how every one of you can do the same and can expose your own product for external developers. I will try to give as much holistic view of the problem and the topic as possible. And we're going to talk about business, product, architecture, processes, technologies. So I hope you will not get bored in the next 30 minutes. And after the talk, as we already mentioned, we will have a Q&A session. So feel free to ask me what you want. And after it, also in the Slack channel and in all different channels that you want, I will be happy to answer. So let's start. Why is low-code, no-code is so important for us? In general, I'm not sure that I will be able to see, but I want to ask how many of you, who heard before about low-code, no-code platforms or used it in your day-to-day? Let me enlarge the screen. Can you raise the hand, please? Okay, as I thought, not a lot. And I will try to show to you this world, why it's important, and why you need to consider of looking into this direction. So first of all, we need to understand what is a no-code and low-code means and what is the difference between them. Actually, the distinction is not so much about the need to write code or not, but more about the types of people who are using your platform. So no-code is built for a non-developer business user who wants to build their application, who wants to build their process without writing even a single line of code. And low-code, on the other hand, is for professional developers who will develop applications. And low in this phrase low code means that we want to allow the developer to focus on building the business logic and not on repetitive things like how to build my code, how to package it, how to release it, what is the monitoring infrastructure I need to have, and many more. I want to write the application and as easy as possible deploy it to my users. And because of the ability to develop reusable modules for the business, low-code platform really has the unlimited possibilities. Why it's interesting now? The low-code market is growing dramatically, and from 2018 to 2022, it grew up from 4 billion to 21 billion, which is a lot, more than 5x growth. And right now, there are more than 200 vendors that market their products as low-code platform, and in general, everyone wants to become a platform. And one of the reasons for this is the pace that software development world is running forward and changing. And if you want to change this fast as the industry changing around you, you need to consider this move. And we considered it as well. So we understood the value of becoming a platform and made a strategic shift of becoming a platform for every business. So now I would like to share with you the journey that we took in Mondly.com in transforming the Work OS into low-code, no-code platform. And this journey is our experience, but I really think it's a good example in general. And you will also see later on how other platforms like Slack, MS Teams, Zendesk are also doing similar moves and also opening their platforms as much as possible. So our low-code, no-code platform journey started around 4 years ago. It's actually started from the very basics, but I think the most important part is the product market fit of the platform. We were looking to provide the teams with intuitive visual project management platform that could also manage any business process and make accessible to any team of any size without any technical knowledge. I think you all know that Jira, for example, developers really love this product, but it's really impossible to make other people in the company, sales, product, to love working with Jira. So our mission was to make the product that will be as accessible as possible to everyone who need to manage anything. So we started with the main component in the system, which is called Board. And it's the heart of the system. And in general, it's the very easy way to streamline any workflow in minutes. In general, it's a very intuitive and beautiful table where you can add columns and, of course, rows. And then you can use it to list any projects, tasks, any other types of information. And after we saw that people are adopting this tool and start to use it, we moved to the next step. And we learned that our customers wanted to connect the projects and all the data that they have in these boards to external tools. So it was our next step. And we opened the public API on top of the platform. So this enabled something which is called high-code solution, meaning that you have the public API, and then someone who wants to do something with it need to build some script or another web page that is going to use this API. And even though this was an important step of our evolution, it wasn't enough because it required a fairly big investment from our users to build solutions on top of the API directly. So we moved to the next phase. And the next step, we started to build different customizable blocks on top of the platform. Customizable building blocks made the platform really flexible because every customer is able to use just drag and drop for the functionality they need, such as boards, forms, visualizations, dashboards, analytics, and quickly create the table-driven apps they need for the business. This is where the no-code stage started. Actually, in low-code, no-code, there is the part of no-code, and this is this part. In the beginning, for example, we had only 7 types of columns, but we thought of the problem in scale, how we can scale the process of adding columns, and we created infrastructure to easily add more columns to the board. We created 20 more in the internal hackathon that we've built, which we involved the whole R&D to build it. And with all of these new columns, boards became much more powerful and much more valuable for a lot of different use cases. In addition, we've built dashboards, which became another building block that we provided, and it turned data into easy-to-use visuals. They gather data from multiple boards and provide insights to leadership or management of the organization, so they can immediately identify bottlenecks, ensure the teams are aligned, and in general, like we all know and love numbers and dashboards, so I won't deep dive too much how valuable it is. The next step and the next building block that we added was the workflow automations. And actually, we wanted to save valuable time for the people and let the platform work for them. And we achieved this by allowing teams to automate repetitive manual tasks in a very easy-to-use form. Allowing users to build what we're calling automation recipes, that they can define what they need in the easy way, like when something happened, do something, and the platform can do the rest for them. And we have the metric of how successful this product is, which we're calculating how many users' actions we saved with automations. And right now we are in more than 1 billion actions. So it's a really crazy achievement. And even though our no-code solutions allowed our customers to build a lot of great solutions, creating the no-code building blocks was still on us, on Monday R&D. And it was really limiting because we have always limiting resources, and we cannot build, every day a new recipe or every day the new type of the visualization of data. So we decided that we can allow external developers to implement their own implementation of our building blocks. And this is what is called Monday Apps Framework. With this framework, any developer can build whatever they want to any business niche. You can build what specific integration with some niche tool for a specific country or for specific business vertical. And building this framework really made our platform super flexible and really limitless. During the past 2 years, we are working on this framework and building it, and it really gave this holistic ability to oversee the platform and extend in every different possible way. And it's very similar to the mobile phone. You have two similar devices or even the same devices, but the set of applications which are installed in these devices are totally different, and the usage of them is totally different as well. So as the last phase of this, we opened a marketplace of the application, similar to the App Store or Google Play, where all developers can actually publish their applications, share with Monday customers, and monetize them, making money from them. So this is a very important part, which actually connects a developer to user and makes the whole product exponentially grow, just like, again, iPhone is almost not usable without all the applications that you can install from the App Store. So if we will recap the flow of the evolution and journey of the product, we have 3 main stages. First, we're focusing on the product market fit. Without this, you kind of cannot do anything. Next, you're building a no-code platform, which adds more blocks that people can use to build their own workflows and applications. And finally, you're opening it with the low-code framework, which adds valuable layers to the product and unlock the new abilities to use your platform. And as I already mentioned, R&D, we don't always have the capacity to solve every problem for every client. And having a low-code platform actually allows us to scale the R&D infinitely, because every external developer can go and build a specific feature that some specific client need. So we kind of looking at this, as you can see on the graph, like there are apps and functionalities by us, which are super wide and like need to address the biggest amount of users which are using it, but it is pretty narrow amount. And then we have a lot of different applications that developers are building, which are addressing less wide needs, but there are many more of them. So now we understand in general what does mean the no code and low code and what is the value of it. And let's focus on the last part, how to actually build a low code solution. I want to think together and try to go over all the main things that you need to consider if you will want to open your own product to be able to be extensible for external developers. So let's start with the first step that we need to do. First of all, we need to understand what are the blocks that make sense in our product that we want to give the ability to extend by other developers. It is very much depends on specific of the platform. So you're working on your product and you know what are the needs and what are the things which are very volatile that you can really extend and build a lot of different instances of it. So it can be dashboard widgets, it can be new type of entities, it can be different workflows, different views of tickets, builds, data visualizations, or any other options which suits your specific product. And for the inspiration, let's go over some examples of building blocks in different platforms and how they are allowing you to extend these platforms. So one of the example of the block the developers can build in Monday, let's say, is dashboard widget, as I already said before. And every widget is just gathering data from different data sources and could extend this data with third-party data of another system, let's say, and display in some specific way. And if you will go to even any graph library, you will see how many ways of presenting data in general exist in the world. And each of it can become a widget in the system. Another example of a low-code application is Slack Forms. And like you probably used a lot of these type of forms, and imagine that all of them Slack R&D would need to implement. Like the whole R&D would just work on implementation of different forms of integration with different products. Next example is Zendesk. They have the side panel of every ticket which is coming to the support team, and this side panel is an app. And actually, in this example, this is an integration app with some CRM system where you can, in one button, click and create a lead in the CRM system based on the ticket that you got from the client. Or even wider example is the plugins in the browser. In general, every plugin is a low-code application where browser is actually one of the most powerful low-code platforms that you use every day. And as I already mentioned, think about your system. What are the parts which are flexible and volatile, and think about exposing them, even maybe in the first step, not for external developers, but for internal reusability, because this is also a very right architectural move to define the specific API of the block and allow to build it in an isolated manner. So after we understood what are the building blocks that we want to expose, we need to understand what this block can do and what are the interfaces that of communication between this block and your platform, your system, under which context it can work. It's a global context. It's like something that, floating on top of the whole platform, or it's in the context of specific dashboard, in the context of specific ticket, etc. And which level of freedomness we want to allow this block to have. Another very important thing to answer is how we are going to support unlimited amount of features. So currently, we are saying that every developer can build new features on top of our product. So we do not control how many features, how many widgets we are going to have. And more of that, every customer will use different set of features specifically for their needs. And we need to find a way of how to allow all these features to be discovered in a usable way. And not to come to the awful example of Microsoft Word toolbar. I think all of you saw this screenshot before. One of the possible solutions that we came to is what we're calling feature stores, where features can be categorized, searchable. We can do some specific recommendation based on the user usage of the system or based on the use case that they're using system for. And there can also be other options. For example, Slack is using smart auto suggestions. Whenever you're sending a specific type of file in the channel, it says, hey, I see that it's presentation. Maybe you want to use Google Slides app. There can be also other solutions, some dynamic menus, action bars, or other user experience options. But it's for sure something that needs to be considered when you're doing this change in the product. The second step will be to answer actually how we want to give external developers ability to build their app. I see this here, two main approaches like that different platforms are using. The first one is to provide some very proprietary declarative way of building your app. For example, browser extension is giving you this manifest, but then you can extend it. But let's say Slack is giving you specific structure of the JSON, and you are saying in this JSON, I want to have a form. This form has one text field, two buttons, and this is actually what you can do with this. The second option is to give a developer ability to write their own code on any language or any framework they want. This gives a lot of more flexibility for developers. It also doesn't connect developer to some proprietary technology as less as possible, at least. And we chose this direction because we feel that this allows developers to build much more robust and flexible applications and not being afraid of getting into some proprietary technology. Like, for example, in Salesforce, they have their own language. SAP platform, they have their own language that you need to learn to build the applications on top of it. I really believe in the way that it should be as much as open as possible, and we shouldn't require a lot of connection to the fact that you're building for a specific platform. In general, both options have their pros and cons, and you need to consider which direction you want to take. But I think that this one of allowing to write any type of code is more challenging to implement. So let's go with it. And now think about the way how we can design and implement this system. So the next step is to build the architecture of the solution. How actually we're going to do this? So let's do it together. So let's say that we have the classical web application. Probably most of the platforms and products are something that look like this. We have the front-end host application, which over the API, getting and changing data of the host backend. So I'm calling this as a host application because it will actually host our third-party apps on top of it. So now we want to allow external application to inject itself to our host application. So how we can do this? What is the most naive solution for this? So let's in runtime add a script tag to our host application, which will inject this app into the page from some third-party domain, which contains this third-party app. What is the problem with this solution? It's not secure. We always need to remember that any third-party code can be malicious, and it will be malicious at some point. And in this case, it will have access to the user session cookies, can get all the user's data via API. It can ruin your UI. It can get access to your code. And in general, can do whatever it wants. And usually, this is not the level of freedom we want to give third-party developers. And what we can do with it? So let's wrap this third-party script with an iframe. Iframe is the part of the web standard and fully supported by all browsers, and it allows to run third-party code inside of your application in total isolation and in the fully different context. So if we're using iframe, now app has the full isolation, but it's also not good because what's the value of an app inside of your platform? It's if it's fully isolated. It can be some advertisement banner, but it cannot give any value to the user, real value to the user. Because how it can get the data that it needs, how it can communicate somehow with the host application. So here, there is a solution as well. iframe can communicate with the host application via something which is called post messages. It's the safe method of exchanging serialized data between two different window objects, one in the host application and another one inside of the iframe. And let's try to think and model what are the communications that we will need between the host application and this iframe. Actually, there are two main things. First of all, application in the iframe will want to react to some of the user's actions in the system. let's say new ticket was created, some job was ran, user moved to another page, or whatever happened in the system, we would want to give the event to the application to react to it. So it will need to listen to these events, which are happening in the host application, and do something with it. This is really important also if you have the interactive application that another user is doing something. So you are getting updates, immediate updates to your front end, and we would want to also give these updates to the application, so user won't need to refresh it every time to get the updated data. Another part of it, after the events, is a case when the application need to perform some set of authorized action for your system in your host application. For example, I'm clicking some button inside of an app, and it needs to open some global system dialog, or it needs to open the ticket in the modal, or it needs to navigate user to another page. A lot of different use cases when an app needs to initiate some action on the application, on the host application itself. Another super important thing for the app is to have an ability to get and change the data from the system via the API that your host application is holding, like host frontend calls the host backend. And because host application is holding cookies or a JWT token or whatever, the application inside of the iframe can send a specific message to the through the post message, let's say get data, and the host app will take this message and will perform the API call to the backend, get the data, and with the post message, will send it back to the iframe. We are calling this process seamless authentication because from the app point of view, they can just say get data, get this data, and don't implement any type of the oath or any type of the other identity exchange mechanism. So it just works because we are fully controlling this tunnel between the host application and iframe via post messages. More of that, because our host application is controlling the process of calling the API, it can authorize it based on the specific scopes that we can add to this application. So we can authorize application to update only specific parts of the data and define this in the token that host application will enforce for every API call that it's performing for this app. So seamless authentication and permission restrictions together are very powerful because from one side, we're allowing app to get the data as easy as possible, but from the other, we're limiting it for getting and restricting only to the data that this app requires. So for example, in our platform, every app is defining what are the scopes it needs, like boards read, users write, and then whatever they're trying to do via the API will be limited to the scopes that this app is requiring. And we also, to simplify working with these post messages, we can provide an official SDK for our platform, which will encapsulate all of the logic of working between iframe and host application, and can actually make this as easy callbacks or promises or async awaits that they can do await get data or await API and get the result asynchronously without even knowing that all of these things are happening under the hood. So, for example, our SDK has 4 main capabilities. It's ability to perform API calls with a seamless authentication, ability to get data from the host application, ability to listen to changes from the host application, and ability to execute actions on the host application, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, in a lot of cases, application will also want to perform API calls to its own backend, which can be some third-party product that this app is integrating with, or just the backend, to store some data that app requires, and it's not related to the host backend. And in this case, most probably it will need to have some kind of oath because it will need to get the connection between identities on its own backend and your system, but still it's possible. So actually what we have right now is the full working solution that we can start building apps on top of. It's secure, it gives us a lot of flexibility, it's not so hard to use it from the app point of view, and the app can be built in any possible way that a developer wants. So we kind of achieved what we wanted. Now let's move to the next very important part of all the picture, which is this API. When we started to build Apps Framework, we understood how important API is for a low-code platform, because actually this is the main gateway for everything, all the ecosystem, to access the data, which is the main asset of your platform. So if we want to do this, we need from now on to start considering API as a product. It means that we need to have a strategy of feature completeness for the API. We need to understand how users are going to explore new capabilities. So we need to have the great documentation, and experience of this documentation should be not worse than the experience of working with the platform itself. We need to think about limiting of your application. What should be the performance and stability of it? In general, the uptime of it needs to be even higher than the uptime of the whole product itself. We need to think about backward compatibility and overall the whole experience of the product. So from this point of time, you need to understand that your API is not just a thing that someone is using sometimes. It is a product that you need to maintain and support and give it the whole attention as to any other product. For example, we are exposing GraphQL API, and we're providing this interactive playground where people can explore what are the things that we have, run the queries simultaneously just from this UI, and actually a lot of things you can do without even opening the official documentation. So next step is actually to make your platform not just a development platform, but a really low-code platform. So we already built a lot of things that you have scopes, you have easy way to query your API, but there are a lot of other things and a lot of other ways how we can make life of developers simpler. So if you will think about the last 3 apps that you've built and how many repetitive things you had to do, like now you need to have UI components. I will take material design or something else. How and where I will host my front-end code. How and where I will host my backend code, like AWS, GCP, Heroku. And now think that's about thousands of developers who are going to build and do these things again and again on top of your platform. So we want to reduce the friction of developers and making them focus on building what they need, the app itself, and not doing these repetitive things. You also need to think about the good development experience. You can do a lot of things like wizards, CLIs, example applications that's like they can go and just copy paste things that will just work for them in the 5 minutes. There is always 5 minutes rule. If you are not giving developer to see the value and hello world in 5 minutes, developer won't use your platform. And of course, we need a very solid documentation, which is easy to use, easy to search from. And I think all of us remember of experience of using some framework or library which has good documentation. You're like, wow, I'm finding everything super easy. I'm opening the page. Here is the answer to my question. Or documentation that is not updated, not maintained. Everything you see, it's probably not going to work. And it's really, really, really changes the way how developers perceive the platform. And in general, are they going to build something for you or not? Another very important part of every developer platform is the community. It's very important that the community will be active, that people will go there and see that it's not a cemetery of dead posts, the last updates of 5 years ago, but something that live, that you can ask the question and someone will answer you. You can go to Stack Overflow and you can find some answers to the questions regarding this specific platform. And this also gives a lot of confidence for developer that if they will meet a problem, they will find the answer for this problem. And the last step is actually to bring more developers to your platform, because now we need to consider that we are not only B2C or B2B product, we are also B2D, business to developer product and company, and we need to acquire new users of this product, which are developers. So first of all, you always need to think about what is the incentive for someone to build an app for your platform. It can be monetization, making money. It can be user acquisition. So if you have a lot of users in your platform and some product can do even free app, but will get the users to their own platform, create synergy for the similar users. So let's say everyone who is using Slack is also using Google Docs, so they can build an app for each other just to make a synergy integration between these two products. Anyway, there should be an incentive, because without it, no one is going to invest the time in building the application for you. You also need to start building DevRel and DevSuccess functions, which will be responsible for both bringing new developers, like high-touch bringing and some marketing activities and so on, and also making them successful, helping them, supporting them in the way that they can build their app from day one to their production. And also think about different events, hackathons, webinars, running competition, participate in public speaking, a lot of different things that people and developers will know and will want to join your platform. And in general, in Monday, we're practicing this from the day one, meaning that's like from the beginning, everyone in the team was doing different parts of these activities. But now we're working on scaling it and building these separate functions for DevRel, for DevSuccess, and so on. For example, what we did when we just launched the platform and we were really seeking for first applications for our marketplace, we were running Monday Apps challenges, and every developer in the world could build an app, and we were giving the great prizes for these apps. The main prizes were Teslas. In each of the events, it was different Tesla that we were given, Tesla X, S, and E, 3, sorry. And also a lot of other smaller prizes like PS5s, MacBooks, and so on. And it can sound expensive, but it's really amount of features and amount of apps and amount of clients that these apps give value is much bigger than any of these investments to bring these applications to the marketplace. So this is just one of the examples on how you can give incentive for developers to start building apps on top of your platform, but there can be many more. So if we will do a recap of everything that I just said, and what we learned, we first of all understood what do we want to extend and what are the building blocks that we want to have in the platform, how we want to extend it, how to build an architecture for the solution, how to make an API-grade product, and how to bring developers to build apps on top of the platform. And in general, it can sound complex and a bit scary that you need to build all of these, but it is actually something that you can do iteratively, step by step, as any other project, agile. And overall, we here launched all of the framework after 2 quarters of 3 developers working on it. And then we're building more and more things on top of. So start small. In the first version, you can expose this not for all external developers, but again, to do this inside of your organization, allow other people from other teams, groups, departments to build applications for your product. And then if you will see the value, you can move forward and open this for external developers. And I really hope that you will think about it and will start thinking how to build and extend your platform for external developers, and do it maybe tomorrow or at least starting Monday. Thank you very much. We can go to the Q&A session now.
Hello, hello.
Hey, I can hear you.
Can you hear us, Vlad?
Yeah.
Okay, we have an echo, but we hear ourselves. Everybody give him a hand. Give him a hand. Some applause. That was a lot of information, and I understand all of that was 6 easy steps on how to open your platform for external developers. Is that right? Does anyone here have any questions for Vlad? Any single question? Okay, I see someone's hand over here. 1 second, Vlad. I hope you can hear this well.
Hey, Vlad. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
A question, great presentation, by the way. I feel inspired. Question is about no-code solution. This is no code, but still programming, because like you are writing conditional logic. So I was wondering how you solve the problem of users testing it, debugging it, because you might make a mistake as a user.
Good question. Actually, like about the difference in no code and low code, it's not always so clear. So for example, let's have an example of formulas in Excel. right? So overall, you can say that Formula, it's also kind of a programming language, declarative programming language, but a lot of people can use it without even, know what programming is. And then a lot of things is about user experience. So for example, if you're allowing users to write some conditions or formulas inside of the platform, then if there is a mistake, you need to point as soon as possible that there is a mistake. If you're, for example, allowing to write small condition and then run the workflow on top of it, then you should have the action log that will show you, hey, this run didn't happen. This is because this parameter was not like this, or this condition didn't work, or you had some problem in your formula or your expression. So the main thing about debugging and allowing to find problems is to show the problem as soon as possible and never hide it. But it is very different, from product to product. For example, there is product Zapier, which is a really cool workflow tool, also no code, that you're just connecting different blocks. And if something is not working, they're showing you all your failed zaps. They're showing as much information as possible about why this happened, and allow you to understand what was wrong.
Would you say there is a certain kind of the market, there are certain spheres of activity that are particularly suited for no-code, low-code solutions? Thank you.
Yeah, so the biggest example of no-code, low-code platform is Salesforce. Let's say Atlassian, with all their products, they have amazing marketplace of applications. Zendesk, browser. So overall, everything that has a very, very wide usage. That's different types of people can use it, and the variety of the use cases of using your platform is there are a lot of use cases. So if it's a very something niche, then it's probably not a good fit for low code, no code. If it allows users to use your system in a very big amount of use cases, then it's a good fit.
Good answers. All right. Listen, everyone, we've got to keep this moving. Again, I'm sure there are probably more questions for you now, Vlad, but that was a very informative, I could even tell, great presentation, and we thank you very much. Give him a hand once more, everybody.